Good morning, people.
We're live. Welcome back. Welcome to Table for 7 Billion.
We are live and
Uh,
alive.
I think there were a couple of births recently, so it might be 7 billion and two now. I'm not sure.
There's one death.
Oh, right.
Just
So
to...
7 million one. Okay. And counting.
we still count everything, cheers,
Great.
guys. This is my
Cheers to you.
super reboot. We
Here's my
are,
water.
James. We are at Rainbow now, also in San Francisco.
Oh, great. Oh,
So
that's a
Rainbow,
wonderful
Berkeley
store.
Ball, yeah. But I need to make a list of where are the places we are because it's growing, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Rainbow's a wonderful store. I've been over there many times. They have a great cheese department and a really uh, talented and
Oh
knowledgeable
yeah.
cheesemonger. Yes, it's true. It's true.
Oh man. So since last week, nothing happened.
Nothing at all.
So, so what you gonna do, right?
Well, let's make something happen. We were going to
Yeah,
talk
let's make
today.
something happen.
We were going to talk a little bit today about bitters.
Yep.
Um,
And we're
like
not gonna be bitter about it.
no, no. We're going to try to be upbeat,
Right.
despite the bitter mistakes I've made in my life. But
The bittersweet.
bitters, and I have some samples here that I'm going to show you in just a moment. I decided I'm going to focus on bitters at the bar, and
Yeah.
I brought the big three with me today. These are the three. There's lots of bitters. We use at Cesar. We use saffron bitters. We have
Ooh. Wow.
hot
What's
spicy
that?
bitters. We
Saffron.
make them, but you can
Cheers.
buy them. But we make them. We use it in a couple cocktails. We have vanilla bitters, which we use in a cocktail. We have firewater bitters, which are made with jalapeno. So we put those. You just want to use a drop or two because it'll really spice up a drink.
Right.
And a bunch more. We have mole bitters. We have all kinds. But these are really the three most important bitters at the bar. And the first one, of course, is the most famous bitters of all, and that's Angostura. Gosh, my picture looks awful, but
I know it's. I think we might get you a camera, James,
yeah, I think so.
next time.
Anyway, Angostura bitters have been made since the mid 19th century. Uh, they are almost indispensable at the bar. They're a major ingredient in a Manhattan, champagne cocktails, old fashions, all kinds
Wow.
of
I
drinks.
forgot. I forgot the champagne cocktail. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
They're
people
also
order
great.
that? People still?
Sometimes, not often, but sometimes. It's also good. Just a couple drops or a few drops of this and some seltzer water is a great little uh, aperitif or a digestif, really, if you don't want to drink alcohol, or if you have an upset stomach. Little bitters and some soda water is a great little cure for that. Um, and
You
these have
said
been,
you said aperitif, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
aperitif, it's from the word appetite. So it's to open the appetite. It's
right,
really a
right.
bitters fun. Oh, Julie, oh my God.
Julie,
Julie, she really is. And second, she's an awesome writer, just like you, James.
and she's named for my sister.
Oh, Shapiro? Julie. Julie, good to see you. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, Angostura is actually named for a town that's now called Ciudad de Bolivar, I think is the name of the town in Venezuela. Anyway, they've been made for a very, very long time. And they are, like I said, they are indispensable at the bar. The second
Right.
most, the second most important one is probably this one, Peychaud's bitter.
Oh,
Uh,
Pesho. Oh my God, that's sold. That's
yeah,
crazy.
this was created in New Orleans by a man named Antoine Peychaud in around 1800. I think he invented them in the late 18th century. He won a lot of awards for it, and he was a pharmacist by trade, and he had a drugstore, what was then called a drugstore. I mean, it was probably a far cry from what our drugstores are today. But drugstores back then also served remedies. You could go in there and get something made for you that would, if you had an upset stomach or something. And he made these as medicine, basically. And he would serve them in his shop in various concoctions.
Right.
And his name is important because he's involved in one of the theories of the origin of the word cocktail and the origin of cocktails themselves, because he used to
Well
serve these.
then,
He
yeah,
used to
right.
he used to serve these little brandy concoctions, and he would serve them in little egg cups, which is called a coquetier. And
Cocotier.
yeah, and so people think that that word somehow morphed through the English language and became cocktail.
Yeah.
I'm dubious about that theory, but he was very important in the early history of cocktails. The
And I'm sorry,
Sazerac
when was
cocktail
that,
is
James?
named for him.
Sazerac. Oh my God, yeah, Sazerac. When
Yeah,
was that, James? I'm sorry. When was
uh,
that?
late 18th century, early 19th century.
Okay.
He used to make these drinks out of brandy, Sazerac brandy, which was
Cocotier, says
yeah,
my cousin.
yeah.
How do you know? What do you know about cocotier, Martin? Huh? Coco, cocotier.
Anyway, we still make Sazerac cocktails today, although they're generally made out of rye whiskey today instead of brandy for some reason. But they're very, very good, and they
Bitters,
have
yeah.
Peychaud's bitters. Very
A
important.
bit bitters have been I don't know if they've been created, but they've been eaten for medical reason.
Right,
Or
right.
it's a well, it does a lot of things, but it does a lot of things actually. But one of the
Yeah,
things it does, it helps you digest because it triggers the bile. So it's a when you say it's a digestive, I would say it's an aperitif. Aperitif is apere, to open.
right, right,
So aperitif, it helps you digest, especially fats, by the bile. What the bile does, it breaks down those fat in small little molecules so they can be digested later in the colon.
right.
So it's very easy to digest. It's much better to digest. Bitter is a digesting. So you take that as an aperitif. You could take that as a digestive also.
Well,
Digestive, right?
it's really both, because as an
Right.
aperitif, it prepares you for
It
the meal to
triggers,
come. It
right?
opens up your pathways. As a digestif, it can help you. It can help spur on the digestion even more. So that's why people sometimes take them for an upset stomach, because it activates things in your belly that help you digest. So I brought a third one here very quickly. I brought this third one. These are orange bitters. Now, there are
Oh
several
yeah.
kinds of orange bitters. This one is the Regan's orange bitter, which I think is the best. And not just because the inventor, Gary Regan, is an old pal of mine, but because they really
But
are
that has
delicious.
nothing to do with that, right?
Has nothing to do with it. This
Okay,
guy is
let's be
one of the
clear.
funniest people I've ever known. He was a barman in North England. I think he was in Yorkshire. He grew up, and for years and years and years, he worked behind the bar, and is very knowledgeable. His picture used to be on the front of the bottle. Apparently, it's
Is
not
it
anymore. He has
is
big,
it still
long
alive?
beard. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Should we talk to him? We should invite him.
We should. We should. He's a great guy. I've did some traveling with him once. I don't even know if he remembers. We were on trips together in Rome and someplace else. But he never could find good orange bitters, so he experimented on his own until he came up with this formula, which he thought was the best, and I agree with him. And then he partnered with the Sazerac
Oh
people
wow.
to produce them, because he needed to
Wow.
make them more stable. And
So
so it's his
you
formula, but they figured out how to do it so you could put it in a bottle and sell it.
wow. So James, you want to talk about Sazerac because that's the second time you mention it. It's a
Yeah,
cocktail, right?
it's a cocktail, and
But
it's
it's
also a
also
brand.
right. So
The
do you wanna
cocktail is made with a little sugar. At Cesar, we use simple syrup, a couple of little tiny bar spoonfuls of sugar in a glass, uh, a couple ounces of rye. We actually use a Sazerac rye, which is
right.
a brand of
Wow.
rye. It's very good
Perfect, right?
rye. It's very good rye, and it's a good well rye because it's a good basic rye. It's not too expensive. And then, but then the other thing, and then Peychaud bitters, of course, are in it. A couple drops of that. And then the other thing that really sets it apart is you take the glass before you stir this cocktail on ice, and before you pour it into the glass, you rinse the glass with absinthe, which gives it
Wow.
that licorice light flavor. And the way we serve it at César, which apparently is the traditional way of serving the Sazerac, we serve it in an old-fashioned glass, just a straight-sided little old-fashioned glass with no ice. We stir it on ice and then pour it into the glass, a lemon peel, and that's it. So you get this little
Wow.
glass of liquor. It's a wonderful drink. It's kind of like an old fashioned, but with the rye and with the absinthe wash, it gives it a whole other dimension. It's really, really good. Sazerac, there we go. A deep history of global what? A deep history of the globe.
So this is Sazerac. Okay, cool.
So this must be the same company that makes our rye.
Nice. All right, Sazerac. Ooh, look at that.
But they're
It's a
French, of
cognac here.
course, and originally they made brandy, and that's why Antoine Peychaud, that's why he would have known about them, because he was French, and New Orleans was very, very French. It was settled by the French originally, so there was a very definitely a French culture there already.
Right,
And so they would have been drinking brandy, and when they came into his shop, they had
right,
brandy
right.
with his bitters,
Ah, yeah. Ah,
which
that's
was
funny.
strictly medicinal, of course.
Wow.
Um, There they are. Where are they? Does it say where they are in France?
I think Sazerac is a. Let me see.
It must be in Bordeaux, right? Because it ends in the AC.
Yeah, Ac.
Yeah,
Just like the Comte de Cadillac.
Cadillac, Cognac, Armagnac.
Yep. Les Américains aiment le brandy.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, that's French. I can't translate that.
That's all right. I understand it completely.
Oh yeah, she American
It
people
means
like
Americans love brandy.
love brandy. The traditional spelling.
Yeah,
Oh, brandy, you mean the booze, not the girl.
right, right. We
They
love
love
brandy
brandy,
too, but
right?
didn't they write a song about brandy? Well, what's important to realize is that so many of
Wow.
these things were originally created as medicine,
Medicine.
basically. And all the most famous liqueurs, all
And
the
suddenly that's right.
amari, all the different kinds of bitters. They were all made for medicinal purposes to
Well, it
basically
was
soothe the digestion, and they helped with
because
fevers and all kinds of things.
so yeah, that's part of the job of the monks in monasteries because
Right,
the reason is they have all these gardens and they could spend the whole time experimenting and because they had nothing else to do. You have to remember that that was their thing. They were working the land, doing some prayers, and working on how to experiment with um, essences, perfume,
right,
booze, alcohol in a way of healing.
right.
But it
And
becomes what it is today.
these were all made with natural ingredients like
Oh yeah,
seeds and bark and herbs and roots and all kinds of stuff that would have been readily available to the monks or would have
right,
been cultivated by the monks.
right.
And there are other
So that
kinds of bitters too. These are what we refer to as bitters in the bar. These are greatly uh, these are like really condensed down. These are very, very strong. You use them
they're
by
very
the drop.
concentrated. They're really
Yeah, they're very
concentrated. Yeah.
concentrated. That's the word I was
You're
looking
looking for
for. I'm glad you speak English because I have trouble with it sometimes.
I have my dictionary right here.
So these are used just one or two drops at a time, but there are other kinds of bitters like Campari is a form
Oh
of
yeah.
bitters, Chinar, things like that.
Ooh.
Fernet
Cynar
Branca
is yeah, Cynar. I mean, Cynar.
made
I
from
know
artichokes.
it's made for artichoke. That's why it's so good for your liver. It's
Ah,
amazing. So it's a hangover cure, right? Just
uh-huh.
like people that The bartenders when they come out, from a day of partying and they drink the Fernet Branca, right?
Right. Right.
Some restaurant, the Fernet is only for the staff.
Yeah. We go through a lot of it at Cesar, not and because
Really?
the staff drinks it, but also we have a lot of customers that will come in, especially late at night, and they'll order a
Hmm.
Fernet. They probably
It's
had
good.
dinner and
Cyanide is better, I think, but it's very strong. So it's bitter, right?
very bitter.
That's the bitter. It's a cleanser. It's a cleanser
It
for your
tastes
liver,
very
absolutely.
to me the best way to describe it is it tastes very medicinal.
Yeah.
But it's got a nice flavor. I mean, it's an acquired taste, but and you don't drink tons of it. You don't sit and drink
No.
Fernet all night. You drink a little glass of it to, settle your system and um but it's interesting that now we think of all these things as purely for entertainment.
Oh yeah.
Uh
Well,
and
yeah.
originally they were very much very serious business. These were herbal remedies to cure all
Well,
kinds of stuff.
look at absinthe. Do I have any absinthe here?
Absinthe, one
You,
of the most famous. It's got a
I
very
need. You know
notorious
what,
history.
Chef James? I'm gonna buy some absinthe for next week.
Oh, good.
I used to have a little bottle here. Anyway, maybe I drank it. Maybe I drank
That's
it with my coffee. I don't know. I don't remember. Absinthe was pretty phenomenal. There's what, like more than 130 different plants, and
right.
they're all medicinal, made in the abbey of I forgot the name of the abbey.
Uh-huh.
Chartres. No, no, no. From the
Well,
Chartres,
there's Chartreuse too, which is very famous for their
the Chartres
liqueur.
monk. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, we'll
But
get some next week. This
absinthe
is
is
a
interesting.
this is an herbal product. Same idea, right? This is based of a recipe that I got from 1500.
Really?
It's in the old days during the plague. Do you remember that
I remember.
people
It was just
what is it,
last
15
year.
something? Yeah, I know, right? It was like the last 2 years basically, and people had to pick up the dead people in the street, and they were getting paid for that, but they didn't want to die. Or some of the people, they were going into people's home, and in order not to die, they had this four thieves vinegar. It's a vinegar product that they put all this product. Some of them I put in there plus vinegar, and they would put that onto their face, onto their
Uh-huh.
mouth and nose, and they would breathe through that.
They would like
So I
soak a handkerchief, right, and tie it around their face
with
so they
vinegar and stuff. So I removed the vinegar because I don't need the vinegar for that. But I kept the original base. Plus, I'm adding some more ginger and turmeric and ashwagandha, but another a little more things. But the base is the idea is those a lot of plants are medicinal on their own. You can mix them up. Um, you don't need to know especially which one does. You need to know the family in like oregano and thyme are really really amazing. I put both of them. I know horseradish is amazing. I know stuff like that. So turmeric, ginger, of course, that didn't exist in medieval time, but that's the idea. And they put that. You've heard about the fourth sieve vinegar,
Mhm.
four thieves vinegar. That's kind of the idea. The idea is people had only medicine to take care of themselves, and they would go around and pick up all these dead people, and they were paid to do that,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to die, so they had this.
Well, and they didn't have hazmat suits in those days. They had no way of protecting themselves other than herbal remedies. Uh,
And doctors were really expensive. To go see a
right,
doctor, it would be like almost a year of salary for any peasant, a boulanger, any of these people.
right.
It would be about a year of salary. So imagine that's why those
Of course,
medicine.
today it's more like 2 years' salary to go to the doctor.
I don't go. I don't go there. They
Also,
scare
the
me.
doctors back then, you were more in danger of their treatments than you were of the whatever you were sick from because they really had no clue what they were doing. They didn't know anything about germs. All they
They
knew how to
didn't,
do
and
was they'd take blood, they'd put leeches on you, they'd do
yeah,
all this ridiculous stuff, and often people would die anyway.
yeah, and that's why they were always speaking in Latin
Right.
because they didn't want people to understand what they were saying. And one of the big revolution in 17 and 18 and is for people to start speaking in their native language, so we close that gap between the doctors who say stuff that we have no idea what they're saying,
Right.
and the customer or the patient that could at least understand what was going on. That's why a big revolution is to talk in normal language, so you can actually make sure that the doctor doesn't say some stupid stuff, basically.
Right.
Because if it's all in Latin, only the clergy, the noble, and the doctor could understand. Nobody else
Right.
spoke Latin.
Well, that was true also when they first published the Bible in English in England. It was considered heresy, and the church was very upset about it because, of course, they didn't want the common people reading the Bible. They wanted to tell them what the Bible said and
Right, right,
interpret
right.
it for them.
Interpreted for them, right? Interpret for
And
them.
if you read it yourself, you could make your own interpretation, or you could take from it what you wanted, but they didn't want
Yeah,
people doing that.
yeah,
I
right,
mean,
right.
that's been the history of religion all along, is just keeping people in the dark and controlling them.
And in the dark, but on the seventh day, though, they put the light came out.
They had light, right? Yeah. Wasn't that the
Or
first day?
on the sixth day, sixth day. No, 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 no.
Yeah,
Sixth day or seventh day. He did everything in the dark.
that's right. So you can use this
Anyway,
stuff in cooking too, right? I mean, they use bitters in
so
baking, cooking, salads,
no,
soups.
we don't. So you for cooking, I'm gonna go with the base. So if I use regular, for example, I we eat a regular at the beginning of a dinner.
Right.
So it's bitter. It helps digestion for later. Chartreuse, oui, c'est ça.
Yeah.
La charte, oui, oui. We're gonna actually see you, cousin. Salut, ciao, bye, my cousin. Les Chartreux. We'll talk about it next week because this is actually a super interesting story. The monks,
Yeah.
they went away during the revolution and they came back right after because they were allowed to. Anyway,
Yeah.
so for us in cooking, the bitter is part of the food. It would be tons of stuff. Dandelion is one of the best example that I really really love. Dandelion is phenomenal for the liver. Milk
Right.
thistle, uh, regular, all this stuff, right? They're very bitter. They're really good for you. Excellent. And the goal with what I try to tell people with kids is try to have your kids used to bitter stuff and switch around from the sugar. The sweet is really terrible. You need to go away from that. But the bitter part is really cool. And that's something that, like you said, it's an acquired taste. And this is important that people get used to that. Uh, some of them do. For example, coffee. Coffee is bitter. Cranberries, broccoli rabe. That's really right.
Right.
And
Right. Very much so.
eggplant could be bitter. Grapefruit is pretty bitter.
Hmm.
You were talking about saffron earlier. Saffron is bitter also. It's a bitter.
Right.
So they all have super strong and good properties. Uh, and when I use herbs, I use whatever I have. It's not because I don't have one and I'm using the other one that nothing is going to work. It's okay to mix your stuff.
Right.
It's not just one thing. It's a bunch of stuff, right?
Right. And the great
Uh,
thing about herbs is you're not going to die from mixing a couple of the wrong herbs together, you know.
well, that's not true. That's not true. You could. That's ridiculous. No, 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 no. The thing with plants is if you eat the wrong
Now
one,
you
you
tell
may
me.
no, you may die. No. So you have to know what you're doing. But the one that are available in the store, you won't die from it, right?
That's what I'm talking about. Herbs like thyme and oregano and rosemary, and
You can
I
put
mean,
as much as you want or
some of them you
more.
can use too much and you might disturb the flavor of the dish. Like I think you can
It's
overdo
hard.
rosemary pretty easily, but
Rosemary,
uh,
yes, but
uh, and
otherwise,
and even
no.
tarragon. Sometimes that can be overdone, but
That's because tarragon is that's an acquired taste. It's
right,
licorice, and not everyone like licorice.
right.
So it's very anisey. So some people are really a prime with anise, not anise, anise.
I was telling you earlier that a customer was the other night was telling me about his grandmother when she first came to this country, and I can't
Yeah,
remember where she was from, Greece or Italy or somewhere, but she would go out and pick dandelion greens
yeah,
because
yeah.
they're so good for you. They're delicious, and she would make them
Amazing.
salads and soups and things. But he was telling me that all their neighbors, because by this
Right.
time they were living kind of in the the neighbors loved her because she would come and weed their yards for free. She would just go over there and she'd be out there and she'd pick all the dandelions in their yard, and they were all just like, "Yeah, you go for it. You pick those dandelions," because
Dandelion,
for most people it's a
dandelion.
weed.
I would suggest that people eat that twice a week. It
Huh.
is a excellent cleanser. It's a heavy metal chelator. Also, it bound with iron when it's too much. So let's see how I can say that without going too much in detail. Let's say if you have an iron overload, this is exactly what you need. That plant, that super
Hmm.
dandelion, it will bind with heavy metals and strip them out. Not iron is not a heavy metal, but also iron overload could be a problem for some people, and this is how you deal with that. The other thing
Interesting.
to deal with for iron overload is milk. I know it sounds weird, but the lactoferrin
Huh.
in there will remove that extra iron. So this is just a side note. But dandelion is fantastic to eat regularly because it cleans your body, remove toxins. It's a good chelator, so it removes some of the toxins, right? So you don't need too much of that, and you go little by little. You don't start eating like tons of like it's like cilantro. Cilantro is heavy metal chelator. Once you realize that, you don't start to go and eat tons of cilantro. It's not good, right? Everything too much, it goes
Yeah.
the same with plants. It's the same idea, okay? It's
Yeah.
always the same. Too much is too much of anything, and that's the thing that I'm always so tired of reading scientific studies that hundred and studies are coming out every day. And one
Right.
of and one of their most likely conclusion is, well, we believe that if you eat too much of that or if you take too much of that, it's not good for you.
It
Like,
causes
really, you
cancer.
have to have another study for that? Seriously, stop.
Yeah.
People need to relax a little
Well,
and
they
eat.
take lab mice and they give them such massive doses of whatever it is they're
Sometime, yeah,
studying, whether it's
but
THC or
sometime, yeah, but sometime no. Sometime it's the right amount. Sometime it's very little. It doesn't matter. It's all over the spectrum, and it's always the same result. Too much of something is not good for you. So stop.
right.
Like it's like, wow.
They've been trying to prove that there's something wrong with coffee for years now, and they just can't do it. I
Whatever.
mean, again, if you drink coffee from the minute you get up in the morning to the minute you go to bed at night, yeah, that's not a good idea. But if you get up and have a cup of coffee in the morning,
Yeah.
there's
I've
nothing
I've
wrong.
so I'm gonna tell you the best study that I've ever read on coffee. If you replace coffee with green tea in the morning, you have 85% of robbing the last joy that you have in the morning of living,
Right. Right. It's
right?
absolutely true. I really enjoy I have one
Oh,
mug of coffee in the
I
morning that I
love my
make in my
coffee.
little French press,
Wow.
and I it's so enjoyable. I just
Coffee is
decided,
fantastic. One other thing with coffee, I love coffee. It's great. Yeah, if you drink too much of it, of course, it becomes a problem with the brain. But one of the things with coffee, it helps with, anyway, BDNF. BDNF is a brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's kind of, it's a good thing.
yeah, I
It's a
mean
good thing. It's good. It's a brain stem
for centuries,
regeneration. It's really, really good stuff. So
right.
not everything is good, but there's a lot of good stuff in coffee. Also, it's full of antioxidants. Also, there's chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, which is extremely good antioxidants. So a little bit of coffee, it's actually super good for you, right?
Yeah.
And it gives your brain pretty alert. I know a lot of studies are very negative about coffee. I'm not saying that you should not read those studies as well. You should not read studies on coffee. Just let go. It's
Yeah.
like drink a couple of cups a day. That's what I do. One, two, maybe three sometime, but that's pretty much it. You're fine. You are completely fine.
Well, and it's like you keep saying, it's about not overdoing it. And
Right.
that's true with everything, whether
Yeah.
you're talking about food or medicine or drugs or alcohol. You
Podcast, shows.
podcasts, yeah, sitcoms on TV, just don't overdo it. Yeah. Oh, I
Anyway, so
also
get
wanted to
your
make mention, you want to be careful if you're out picking dandelions in yards, because if you're out in the suburbs, people put so much chemicals on their lawns to make them
right.
perfect.
No, 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 no.
Uh,
Don't. Yeah.
so
Go
be
in the forest.
careful.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if somebody's yard is just full of dandelions, it probably means they're not using an herbicide, and
Yeah.
it's probably safe. But still, people
Exactly.
there is so much chemicals put on suburban lawns to make them perfect and green, and then their kids go out there and roll around in the grass, it's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. So so what else?
So James, I know you wanted to talk about the. This is actually a good the name. You wanted to do some name dropping.
I do want to do some name dropping. Uh, you know what got me thinking about it was
Your
the
brain.
my yes, my brain got to thinking, and it doesn't happen very often. So when it happens, I take notice.
It
Uh,
vibrates.
there was a recent thing in the news about a judge somewhere in the United States that ruled that Gruyere, any anybody can call their cheese Gruyere that they want. The place where it comes from has nothing to do with the cheese. It's a
Wow.
type of cheese,
Okay.
and if you want to make Gruyere in Alabama and call it Gruyere, even though it might have
Wow.
no resemblance whatsoever to the original, you're allowed to do that. And I say
Wow.
whatever, but I'd be very upset if I was a traditional Gruyere maker, because you know
Yeah. It's an
the
appellation. Or isn't it? So it's not an appellation worldwide. It's just what in the U.S. Because it
in
is an
the United
appellation.
in the European Union, it's protected. You cannot
Right.
call anything Gruyere unless it is
Unless
comes
it's
from
cheese.
the regions where it's supposed to be made, and it's made specifically
Yeah.
how and aged. The consortium governs everything from the animals to how they're fed to how they're milked to how the cheese is made, how it's aged. It has to pass rigorous tests along the way, and the result is it's a monumental cheese. It's one of the great cheeses of the world. I can't imagine a kitchen without Gruyere, because
Yeah.
it's so
Right.
great to cook with. It's so great to eat right out of hand. And it's a dangerous thing when people start saying, look, you can call this whatever you want. And the problem is, obviously, the first problem is the people that make their living making Gruyere and importing Gruyere. It hurts their business, which but the other bad thing is consumers don't understand what they're getting. And if you buy something that says Parmigiano Reggiano or Bordeaux wine or whatever it is, you want some assurance that that's what's in the package. You want to know that what you're buying is the real thing and not some crappy knockoff made somewhere that's probably
Exactly. Right. It's a
industrially
label of
made.
quality. That's the label of quality. Absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of these name protections have to do with where something is
This
from, how it's
this is
made.
this is
Oh, there's
Gruyere.
Gruyere, yeah. And of course, the town of Gruyere, not all Gruyere is made there, but and they make it in Switzerland and they make it in France. Both France and Switzerland
Yeah.
make excellent Gruyere. Um, in fact, if you ask who invented it, it just depends on which side of the border you ask, because the French claim it as theirs, the Swiss claim it as
Well,
theirs.
here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. But it's a
So
really great cheese, and it's
this
made
is where
from
we
milk.
are. See,
Yeah.
where is that? This is macaron. Ah no, Maracon. Château Saint-Denis. This is Switzerland. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Château d'Aix.
It's right at the base of the Alps. You can from
And you have
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Look at that.
and this is just one product. There are many
Hôtel de
products.
Gruyère. Hôtel de Gruyère.
Hotel de Gruyere. Do you think they serve Gruyere?
Wow,
Um,
that looks beautiful, though, huh? Ooh,
oh,
look
it's
at that.
so
L'Hôtel de
beautiful there.
Saint-Georges.
It is
Jesus,
so
man.
beautiful there. Um,
Wow.
but
So,
there are many products
wow,
that have
look at
earned
that,
name
man.
protection
Damn.
in the EU, and the whole system comes from the French wine industry. that thought up these
Right.
codes, if you will, about name protection. Um, and it means something. It means it because it has to do with how it's made. It's and literally some of these products are governed every step of the way, from exactly what kind of animal can be used for the milk, what they eat, how many hours a day they have to be outside. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of rules. So you're really interfering with that quality when you
And the quality of the milk and the soil and everything, right? I mean, it's crazy
right,
stuff.
right.
So yeah, yeah, no, it has to be.
So name protection's important, and it's interesting that the French started it with their wine the
It's like
wine
feta,
industry
right?
is the wine industry is so important in France, and you know it's so interesting. Like I keep mentioning Bordeaux. There are many wine regions in France, but in Bordeaux, for example, there are vineyards that make totally different wine on one side of the road than on the other side of the road. I mean, it's so specific. It's specific to the site, to the little microclimates. Um, it's incredible. I mean, Chateau d'Yquem is a very, very famous Sauterne made in Bordeaux, and it's
Right.
it's very, very special. Even though there's lots of similar wines made, they're made in different plots of land, and they grow different grapes, and it's just the outcome is amazing. And we've talked many times about how if you take a wine from or a grape from France, say a Cabernet Sauvignon,
Yeah.
and you take it and you plant it somewhere else, it's going to be a different grape. It's going to be a different wine. Not necessarily better or worse, but it's going to be different. Which is why California cabs are different than French Cabernet, and of course it has to do with how you make the wine too. California winemakers have different goals when they make their
This is a
um,
French one. I know
yeah.
Switzerland. So I don't know if it's French. It's not French. I can't find.
Well, the French do make it. In fact, one of the
I
most
thought I
famous.
did, yeah, but
Well, Comté is actually a form of
oh
Gruyere.
yeah, okay,
Maybe the best one. I don't know. Now, see this one, Gruyere AOP Reserve. That's the name protection. Um, that it means it's governed by
right.
Le Gruyere is the name of the consortium um, that governs the cheese, and they are very, very strict with how everything about it. Like I said, from the field, from the grass, all the way to the aging room. So it really upset a lot of people when this judge made this ruling, myself included. And
Oh yeah, right.
it's not my job to defend the Gruyere people, but it offends my sensibilities that this judge, who probably doesn't know anything about cheese making at all,
Wow,
could
that's
make
crazy.
this could
My
make this
God.
claim. And of course, he made the claim because there were lawyers there arguing the case, and the ones that argued the best convinced him, and so he made the ruling. And it's a terrible
Crazy.
thing because it hurts a lot of people. Um,
And it's opened the door for like fake stuff again. We're
oh
back to,
yeah. Well,
having
there are a lot of
discussions.
products that the horse is already out of the barn. I mean, cheddar, for example, is made all over the world, called cheddar, and it has to do more today with how it's made, the cheddaring process, than it does with actually coming from a place. But still, the original cheddars in England are still worlds away from most of the cheddar that's made. Um, Brie's another one. Brie and Camembert are made all over the world, and most
What
of them have nothing whatsoever to do with the original.
what about the feta and all the stuff? Same idea, right? But it's
Feta's
still
a
in
big one
Europe.
too. Yeah,
So
feta.
it's still in Europe, James. So basically, it has to do with Europe, no? Or
Right. It's a
what is it?
European law. It's a European law
But it's not
that,
international,
well, most places honor
right?
it, but the United States doesn't. We
Right, 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 right.
we
Okay, okay.
don't pay any attention. There's only a few that we really honor. Like one of them is champagne. For some reason, we honor that name protection. So to call something champagne, it has to come from the region of Champagne and be made in a certain way. But there are other things, and then of course feta. Feta was kind of late in doing this, and they got the
Yeah.
EU to give them
Yeah.
name protection so that all feta has to come from Greece. But it's kind of too late. They've been making great feta, and they've been making it in Bulgaria and Italy, and France makes a ton of feta. The United States makes a ton of feta. The Australia, New Zealand, all these places, Canada, they all make these cheeses, and they've been making them for a long, long time and calling it that. So to suddenly say you can't call it that anymore is kind of unfair. Whereas Gruyere has been protected all along, and suddenly someone's saying, "Oh no, you can call it whatever you want." So what is this? How
This
to
is how
make
you make
cheese?
feta, right?
Yep, yep. Feta is a Greek word that means a slice of something. So, and that's
Mm.
exactly how you make it. It's made in these big blocks, and then you slice it off, and it's aged and it's in brine. So it has a real salty character to it, which also
So
means
cool, huh?
when you use feta, when I use feta, if I put feta in my scrambled eggs, I usually don't add any salt, or I add it at the end, because you can
Feta
really,
is really good cheese. Super good. It's
it's
very healthy.
great
When it's well
cheese.
done, made of fat of sheep and goat, not cow.
Right, right. A lot of the feta that's made today is made from cow's milk cheese, especially here in the U.S. and in
Yes.
France. But traditionally, feta is made from a combination of goat and sheep milk, and those are
Right.
really good. Those are really good milks. They're really good to eat. Yep, feta. You can make it at home, although it's a lot of work for something that you can
Well, that's
easily.
I know. It's like, I was trying to get my mom to teach my mom how to make bread, right?
Mhm.
So she's like, why would I learn how to make bread when I have like three great boulanger down my building and I buy every day? It's like, why would I
Yeah,
learn how to make bread? I don't care.
and it's not
Right.
like it's so expensive that it be
And also,
cost
it's not going to be
efficient
as
to
good
make
for
it.
sure, right?
It's
It's not going to be as good.
You're not going to have the same kind of ovens.
No.
Um, you don't necessarily even have access to the same kind of flour that those professional bakers
Right.
have. I mean,
Yes,
they've got
I do. Right.
connections that go back generations, and they get the
So,
best flour.
James, what else is has name that is AOP? So what is it? Basically, we have cheese, we have
Well,
wine,
there's a lot of
and
cheeses.
then
There are a lot of cured meat products like
cured meat as
prosciutto and
well.
jamon serrano.
Prosciutto.
All the great salamis from Italy have name protection. Of course, none of that's honored over here, but in
Wow.
Europe it is. Uh, Jambon de Bayonne in France is one of the name protected hams over
Jambon
there.
Bayonne is like prosciutto. It's prosciutto
Similar,
from Bayonne.
yeah, which is in the southeastern corner of
But
France, right on the sea. There are a lot of um, Belgian ales that are made in monasteries that have name protection because
oh yeah,
they're so
beer.
special.
Yeah, beer.
Um, there are olive oils, vinegars. There's even vegetables. There are vegetables that get processed, like in Spain. They have certain kinds of peppers and
Ah,
even asparagus that have name protection because of
wow.
how they're put up and how they're grown. Like piquillo peppers is one. It's a
Yep,
very
yep,
special pepper. It's all done
yep.
by hand. It's an
Wow.
amazing product. Um, it's in fact it's kind of astounding that it's even still made because it's so labor intensive, and
Oh
it's such a
wow.
almost a medieval process that it's sort of wild that it still goes on over there. Um, so lots and lots of products. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Even rices and different kinds of grains and things have name protection when they're grown in a specific. Like for example, the arborio rice that's grown in the Po Valley in New York has in New York, in Italy, in northern Italy, that has name protection, and also the what's the other one? There's arborio and there's my brain just fried, but there's another one. There are other kinds of rice. The bomba rice from Spain,
Bombay rice, yeah, right.
yeah, for making paella. Yeah, piquillos are great. That's of course, the pepper in its raw form, and what they
Yeah,
do
right,
is they
right,
roast them, they
right.
peel them, and they slice them up and put them in a jar in olive oil, and they are really
Beautiful.
fantastic. They are really fantastic. Spain, of course, was the first country to receive peppers from the New World because they were the
Hmm.
ones over there doing all the exploring and bringing stuff back. And they were also the ones that introduced a lot of things to the New World, like chickens and pigs and uh, um
Tomatoes and
rice. Well, tomatoes
eggplant.
came from there, but we gave them. I mean, they gave Latin America rice and citrus and all kinds of stuff. And then what they got back was things like chocolate, vanilla, corn, and peppers, which didn't
Yeah.
exist anywhere but in Central America. And Spain was really the first country to get them. And they got really ensconced there. So they went to places like Vera and a couple other places where the peppers began to grow in a certain way. And again, that's that thing. You take it from its place of origin and you start growing it somewhere else, and it becomes a different thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, so all the great pimientos, the paprika that's made in Spain is all made from very special chilies that grow only in Spain. The piquillo
So
peppers, the pimientos, they've
any
got their own that we serve at work. Or
James, do you know any other name of stuff that are not from Europe? Because it looks like Europe is the only place that we have this type of denomination, no?
well,
Or
they've tried to do it here. They've tried to do it here with certain regional foods, but they haven't been as successful. Because the regionalness of America has broken down so much because people have moved around so much. I mean, it used to be that New England was very specific in what they produced and what they ate, and you could look at a dish and say, "Oh, that's from New England." But today
right, but
it's
I mean, as far as the denomination and protecting them, it's wine everywhere in the world,
well, they've tried to do it here with
cheese,
wine and cheese mostly,
some
because
cheese here also.
yeah, because there are some rather unique cheeses made in the United States now, things like Humboldt
Yeah,
Fog and
and really
uh,
good, by the way. So
uh,
it's not like, you know,
Vela Dry Jack and some others that are pretty much unique cheeses. And they've tried to form a system of name protection similar to what they do in Europe. It's not been as successful. People don't recognize it as much. And a lot of people look at that kind of stuff and just say that that's just an elitist thing.
yeah,
It's
right, right,
it's
right. They don't
protecting
understand
rich
that.
people that want to make this product. But what they don't understand
Yeah.
is that a lot of the people that make these products are not rich. They are,
No, no, no.
they make a living, and some of them make a very good living. But these are not, titans of finance over there producing cheese. Cheese has got a very, very slim margin of
Oh
profit
yeah.
to it.
Food in general, good food. It's like
Good
real
food in
food,
general.
real food. Fake food, the margins are astronomical.
Sure, because you can
So that's
produce
what
it
you
in
need to
such a
understand.
huge capacity that you can
This
make
is
money.
why this is why, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, that plant-based movement is a very dangerous one because it leads to so much fake food,
Right.
so much really horrible product that people are just like just to go plant-based, they'll buy anything fake and powdered, and it's cheap to make. If it's
Yeah.
cheap to make, really, is it food? Like this is my biggest fight for, I work with people that are sick, a bunch of different sickness, and really you have to go back to original food, real food. That's
Right.
it. Not processed, not touched,
Right. And
not made in
also,
a powder by some people that make tons of money on your back from your gullibility. It's
right. Also, there's something to be said for over cultivation of farmland too. I mean, there's a lot of damage
right.
that can be done ecologically.
I'm not
Um,
even, James, I'm not even going into that argument. I'm just saying just for the body, just for health.
right.
And you're talking about people that don't make money or people that make money. The crappier the food is, the more money you make off it. It's that simple.
Well, and anytime something's handmade, whether it's a pair of shoes or a cheese,
right?
it's going to cost
Takes
more,
time. It's that,
but
the
they're
material.
probably not making all that much money because you can only sell so much of something if you're making it all by hand, even if you've got a whole village making
Exactly.
it,
And
which is
also
often the case.
right. And it's already more expensive. You can't go crazy. You have to, you know,
Right.
it is going to be more expensive just by the how do you call it? The matière première, the,
Yeah,
oh
the
my God.
materials involved, the
Yeah, yeah.
raw materials. It's like
Wow,
what
the
we
cost of
talked
good.
about. We talked about the 25-year-old Scotch. I mean, if you run out of 25-year-old Scotch, you can't just turn around and make more and have it available next week because it takes 25
It takes
years. So
25 weeks in America.
right. And that's true with a lot of these products from Italy too.
Yeah, no.
Prosciutto, Parmesan. These
Oh
are all
yeah,
aged.
right,
They're
right,
aged for many, many, many
right,
months.
right, right.
So balsamic vinegar is probably the best example because you can't. The good stuff is 40, 50 years to age. So you don't go into these businesses expecting to make a ton of money. You do it
Right.
because for the love of the food. Um, you do it because it's tradition, and eventually maybe people do make money down the road. Generations go down. I mean, maybe if you get established enough, but usually it's just people make a living.
Possibly, of course.
They
No,
don't
it's
get
all,
rich.
yeah, no.
So even though these might be expensive foods compared to other, like Parmigiano Reggiano is definitely expensive compared to craft Parmesan out of that green can.
But
There's a big price difference, but it's a whole different product.
also, Parmesan is actually super food for you. It's a really
Yeah,
good
it's
food.
really good.
It's amazing food, like health-wise.
Yeah,
The other one is terrible. It's disgusting. It's
yeah.
toxic. So you're comparing like poison
Well,
and
that's what
fresh
I
food.
mean. But because there's no delineation between the two, people just don't know. They just assume, well, why should I pay
Yeah,
that much money? Why should I pay $30 a pound when I can buy this
exactly.
for 2.99
It's
and
yeah,
shake it? And
$29
it's
a
and it's
pound.
easier to use. You just open it and you just shake it. You don't need a grater.
It doesn't go
Uh,
bad. That never bothers you. That
yeah,
this thing never goes back. That we should just warn you that.
people used to say when years ago they used to say that McDonald's milkshakes, if you saw one spilled on the sidewalk, it never melted. It just sort of got smaller, and it just
Wow,
like
that's
it
so
didn't
funny.
like
Yeah, no.
if you make a real
We
milkshake
know that.
and you spill it on the sidewalk, it's going to be a puddle and it's going to melt and it's going to evaporate. Eventually it'll just be a sticky spot. But the McDonald's, it's just this
We
little
know.
ball.
I bet, I'm pretty sure the people that are watching this podcast know that
Yeah,
food, has a
sure,
price.
sure.
And no, we need to mention it. Of course, we need to mention it. But it's true that, it's very, very clear that there's a shift in thinking of people trying to realize that food can be a healer or a poison just depending on how much you pay for it. Not
Right.
that everything cheap is not good. That is not what I'm saying, because some people need to cook on a budget, and it's absolutely fine. I did. I actually I'm going to start with Lisa. We're going to start a bunch of new video series. One is cooking for cancer. One is meal planning. I really want to do that. Meal planning on a budget, because meal planning on a budget, I'm going to show you how to cook efficiently. A
Hmm.
lot of food for your week, but you don't have to spend like tons of money and go to the top butcher. You can go mid-range and get something really good, right?
Well, and especially
So
when you buy those cuts of meat that most people don't want, that maybe have
good
to be
point.
cooked in a little different
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's a lot less
yeah,
expensive. I mean,
yeah.
but you go out and buy a T-bone steak, it's expensive. But if you buy the shoulder or something, that it's a lot less
It's
money.
cheap stuff. It's the same animal. It's the same protein, except in the
Right,
shoulder, I'm going to have way more nutrients that I cannot grab unless I cook it for longer. But there's
right,
way more interesting stuff. There's connective tissues, there's fat, there's protein. Those three things are crucial in order to absorb your protein, right?
right.
So you don't want lean protein. That's a mistake.
And it's
Anyway,
true
I'm
that
going
people might not have time to spend hours and hours cooking, but a lot of this stuff you don't have to stand at the stove. I mean, you make a stew, it does a lot of stuff on its own.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
And there's
Chef,
always Sundays. Sundays you cook a bunch of food for the week, you know.
well, that's the thing. I'm gonna do that for that video. You cook for 3 to 4 hours. I mean, it takes take a chunk of time. I usually do it on Saturday because Sunday is kind of a day off. Saturday is always you can always kind of find 3 to 4 hours. In 2 hours, you can't do much. You could do a lot of easy stuff that you can reheat during the week, that's for sure. But you're gonna need about 3 hours. Plus, you need to think of the shopping. But you can also order online. I mean, I know it's pretty easy today, right, nowadays.
Especially now.
And prep time is a good half an hour, right? I mean, you prep, you cook for another hour and a half, 2 hours, right? And then you put it away. So it's about 3 hours.
Hmm.
4 hours, you do a lot. And if you're slow, 4 hours is pretty good. If you're getting better, 3 hours is good. And that include prepping, cutting, washing, and putting those in boxes and putting them away. So that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people now that just simply don't go to the store anymore. They order everything online
Oh
because
my
they
God, that's
got
crazy.
used to it. They saw how
Yeah, yeah,
easy
yeah,
it
yeah.
was. And depending on what source you use, you can get
Right.
pretty much everything you need. Some of it's more expensive. It gets expensive ordering online, especially if you're going like
Well,
to Whole Foods and Good Egg. I mean,
everything is expensive.
great food, but it's pricey.
Did you
Um,
hear that Whole Food was sold by this?
well, they're owned by Amazon now. Did Amazon sell it?
Yeah, yeah, they sold it to some horrible company.
Oh no. Oh, that's terrible.
Sold, no, if it Amazon is fine. I thought they were sold to someone else anyway.
No, I think Amazon still has it because they're changing it a lot and they're gearing it up.
Okay,
It's the reason Whole Foods has been so successful doing online business is because that's what Amazon does.
right, and it was
That's their
pretty
whole
good.
thing.
Whatever, I don't care where you get your stuff, just get good stuff. And Whole Food was pretty good for a while. I mean, I'm not as, for example, when so we have the Berkeley Bowl,
Right.
Monterey Market, right here, like literally a couple of blocks. This is way better, right? But not everybody has this choice. So Whole Food will be the
Right.
next good stuff. Trader Joe is not bad, right? Trader Joe. I,
Trader
I
Joe's
don't
is
go there.
great for a lot of stuff.
There you go. I don't go
Um,
there. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it's
well, we go because
sure it's
we have one
fine.
a block
Right,
and a
right.
half from our house, and you can go there and the prices are pretty good because they negotiate good pricing. And somebody told me at Trader Joe's that if it's got a Trader Joe's label on it, that guarantees that there's no genetically modified feed
Wow.
in it.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
They have a lot of organic food, um,
That's
and
great. Then that's great. That's a good store then,
they
right?
carry, like, you can get Comté there and Gruyere and
Right.
Parmigiano
That's it.
Reggiano. I
I
mean,
don't know. I've never. Okay, so I've tried the cheese at Trader Joe. I don't know what they get it. It's not as. I don't know. Am I wrong? It doesn't.
yeah, it depends on what you get. I mean, some of it's fine.
Because it doesn't matter if you get Gruyere from. It's some Gruyere don't. I don't know. It's they
I think
didn't.
maybe they get a little dried out because
The
they cut
brie,
and
the
wrap
brie
it too
was
far.
super, super floury. In French, we
Yeah,
say farineux. I don't know
yeah,
how to say that. It's kind of like chalky, chalky.
yeah.
I
I
don't
know
know. Brie
exactly
is
what you
like
mean.
melting. It's like it's creamy. And so I don't know. The
That's
wine is
it's a
fantastic, right?
misconception. A lot of people think brie needs to be runny to be ripe, and that's when it's runny, it means it's overripe. It's gone.
Wait, wait.
It should
It's
be
a,
soft. It should be kind
it's
of
a bit, but
bulging.
if it's runny, it's good too. I mean, it can't still smell like ammonia. You have to be careful
Yeah,
because the thing with brie, it will melt. As if you leave it outside too long, it will melt. It doesn't matter. And a good brie is runny. In France, that's what we like. But it can't smell like ammonia. It can't smell strong. It
yeah.
has to smell cheese. So that's the difference, in my
There are s
opinion. Now,
there are some cheeses that you actually eat with a spoon because they get so
right?
runny. Vacherin Mont d'Or is one where you cut
Mhm.
the top off the rind and then you let the cheese sit and it just gets soft and pudding-like, and you literally just eat it with a spoon. It's
Oh, what
an
about the one you
unbelievable.
eat with the astico, the little worms in Corsica?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They serve the cheese with all the worms in there, and you just go in
Yeah.
there. Well, I
Little
couldn't do that.
maggots that age the cheese. Yeah, pretty incredible.
All right,
Oh,
this is
there's
it for
so many
let.
odd foods around the world.
What's that
We love
restaurant?
them all.
The restaurant that serves cheese, in France, the cheese restaurant,
Andouille,
Andouille.
Andouille.
So, can you write, James? Next week we'll talk about absinthe
Yeah,
and Andouille. I want to show
because you know
people
what they say,
Andouille.
absinthe makes the heart grow fonder.
Who's they?
They, you know, them,
They, these people.
those people.
All right, so you guys, this is 2 o'clock. This is it for us. Good to see you, everyone, again, and we will see you next week.